Let's be honest, you already know that bad habit is holding you back. You don't need another article, podcast, or motivational quote to tell you that. You feel it every single day. The question isn't, do I need to stop? The question is, when am I finally going to take ownership and stow pea line to myself? Here's the truth. A habit is just a choice you've rehearsed so many times it turned into autopilot. Nobody accidentally chews their nails, binge scrolls, overeats, or skips workouts. You trained yourself into that behavior, and if you trained it in, you can train it out. The hard part, you can't change what you don't confront. Until you're brutally honest with yourself, you'll keep repeating the same cycles and making the same excuses. A habit is just a rehearsed choice. You can retrain it. Let's strip this down to the raw truth. Every habit you have right now, good or bad, was once a decision. You weren't born biting your nails, staying up too late, scrawling until 2 in the morning, or stress eating. You rehearsed that choice enough times that your brain said, got it. I'll take it from here. And now you don't even think, it just runs on autopilot. That's why people get stuck. They say, I can't stop. No, what they really mean is, I've repeated this choice so many times that it feels automatic. And here's the empowering part. If your brain is powerful enough to train in a bad habit, it's powerful enough to retrain a new one. Think about it like this. When you first learned how to drive, you were hyper aware of every single movement. Check the mirror, foot on the brake, signal, shift gears. It was exhausting. But after enough repetition, your brain locked in the pattern. Now you can drive while holding a conversation, drinking coffee, or even singing along with the radio without consciously thinking about it. That's what a habit is. Neural pathways carved into your brain through repetition. It's training, not destiny, which means you are not stuck. You're simply rehearsing the wrong script. Let me challenge a lie you've probably told yourself. That's just who I am. No. That's just what you've rehearsed. I'm just a night owl really means you've rehearsed staying up late and sleeping in. I'm just a stress eater means you've rehearsed using food to self-soothe. I'm just bad with money means you've rehearsed spending without a plan. When you slap an identity label on a habit, you make it sound permanent. That's an excuse. And excuses are nothing but permission slips to stay the same. Here's the formula choice, rehearsal automation. First, you make a decision, skip the gym, light up a cigarette, doom scroll for just 5 minutes. Then you repeat it again tomorrow and the next day, each time you're practicing. Eventually, your brain saves energy by putting that behavior on autopilot. You don't think about it anymore. It just fires off like muscle memory. Now, if that same formula can build a destructive habit, guess what? It can build a constructive one. Same brain, same wiring, different script. When you see a bad habit as a rehearsed choice, instead of some mysterious, unbreakable curse, you reclaim power. You stop acting like a victim of your impulses. You start acting like the trainer in charge of your own brain. Because here's the hard truth, you trained yourself into that habit, which means you're capable of training yourself out, not overnight, not in one dramatic moment, but through consistent, deliberate rehearsal in the opposite direction. Retraining a habit means replacing the old choice with a new one over and over until that becomes the autopilot. The next time you feel the urge to run the old script, pause and name it. Example, I'm about to open TikTok because I feel bored. That awareness interrupts autopilot. Then instead of rehearsing the old choice, practice the new one. If you're bored, open a book, do 10 push-ups, or text a friend. Whatever your replacement action is, that's your new script. Repetition is the only way to teach your brain. One swap won't fix it. But 50 swaps, 100 swaps. That's how the new pattern becomes second nature. And every successful replacement is a rep in the gym of self-discipline. Don't shrug it off, acknowledge it. That recognition reinforces the loop. Take smoking as an example. Say you smoke a cigarette every time you feel stressed. That's not fate. That's a rehearsed choice. Stress leads to smoking. Smoking leads to temporary relief. You repeated it so often that your brain linked stress and smoking like peanut butter and jelly. Retraining looks like this. Stress leads to deep breathing or gum or a brisk walk. At first, it feels forced and awkward, but keep rehearsing and eventually that becomes your brain's default. The stress won't vanish, but the cigarette link will weaken. Your brain doesn't care if a habit is healthy or destructive. It just cares whether it's familiar. That's why bad habits can feel comforting even when they're wrecking your health, relationships, or finances. Retraining means choosing what's good for you over what's familiar to you. That takes courage, it takes discomfort, and it takes repetition. But the payoff is massive. You're literally rewiring your brain to serve your future instead of sabotage it. So stop telling yourself you're powerless. Stop hiding behind labels. Every habit you hate in your life is proof of one thing: you are consistent. You already know how to rehearse. You've just been rehearsing the wrong play. If you trained yourself into a bad habit, you can train yourself out. No exceptions, no excuses. The only question is whether you're willing to rehearse the new choice long enough to make it your new normal. Replace the habit. Don't just remove it. That's the second key, and it's one people trip over all the time. Most folks think breaking a bad habit is about pure willpower, about saying, I'll just stop. They white knuckle it, grit their teeth, and try to tough it out, and maybe they last a day, a week, sometimes even a month. But then what happens? The craving, the trigger, the old urge creeps back in, and because there's no substitute, no new routine in place, they fall right back into the old loop. Stopping alone doesn't work long term because your brain hates a vacuum. You can't just delete a behavior, you have to replace it. Think about it like ripping weeds out of a garden. If you just pull them up and leave bare soil, something is going to grow there again, probably more weeds. The only way to stop the weeds from coming back is to plant something stronger and more intentional in their place. Habits work the same way. You have a need, a trigger, and an itch, and your habit is scratching it in a predictable way. If you don't give your brain a better option, it will go back to the old destructive one. Let's make this concrete. Say you have the habit of stress eating. Every time the pressure hits, you raid the pantry and grab the chips or the ice cream. That habit isn't about food, it's about relief. Food is just the tool you've trained yourself to use. If you tell yourself, I'll just stop stress eating, what happens the next time you're stressed? The trigger shows up, the need for relief is still there, and because you didn't give yourself an alternative, your brain goes straight back to food. But if you replace it maybe with going for a 5-minute walk, calling a friend, or doing breathing exercises, you're scratching the same itch in a different, healthier way. That's replacement, not removal. Here's another example. Let's say your bad habit is doom, scrolling on your phone before bed. If you say, I'm just not going to use my phone, you're left lying there in the dark, restless, bored, and fidgety. Guess what's going to happen? You grab the phone. But if you swap the phone with a book, a podcast, or journaling, you're still giving your brain the wind down its craving without the negative side effects. That's how you outsmart the loop. The science behind this is simple but powerful. Every habit is a loop of cue, routine, and reward. You can't control the cue, stress, boredom, loneliness, celebration. Those emotions are going to show up whether you like it or not. You also can't erase the need for a reward. You're wired to seek relief or pleasure. The part you can control is the routine, the action in the middle. That's the part you swap out, keep the same cue, keep the same reward, but insert a healthier routine in between. Over time, your brain learns, when this happens, I do this instead, and the replacement becomes the new normal. Now, let me give you some real talk about why people fail here. First mistake, they pick a replacement that doesn't actually satisfy the need. If your stress habit is smoking and you replace it with chewing gum, gum might help for about 2 minutes, but if it doesn't actually calm you down, you'll go back to the cigarette. Your replacement has to actually hit the same nerve. Second mistake, they pick something too complicated. Replacements work best when they're simple, immediate, and realistic. You don't replace binge watching Netflix with a 1-hour workout at the gym on day one. That's too big of a leap. You replace it with a 10-minute walk around the block or a short stretch session in your living room. Third mistake, they try to replace too many habits at once. The brain learns best when you focus on one swap at a time. Here's the key phrase I want you to remember. Replacement is about redirecting, not denying. If you just deny yourself, you'll feel deprived, and deprivation leads to rebellion. If you redirect yourself, you feel empowered, and empowerment leads to momentum. It's the difference between saying, I can't do this anymore, versus I choose to do this instead. One feels like punishment, the other feels like ownership. Imagine someone trying to quit alcohol. They go to a party and just say, I'm not going to drink. They're standing there empty-handed, surrounded by people with glasses in their hands. The social trigger is still there. The need to fit in is still there. And their brain is screaming for that familiar routine. But if they walk in holding a soda, sparkling water, or a mocktail, they're replacing the behavior. The cue and the social reward are the same, but the routine is shifted. That's what makes it sustainable. Let me shoot it straight with you. If you're trying to just stop a habit with no plan to replace it, you're setting yourself up for relapse. Willpower is a temporary band-aid. Replacement is a long-term strategy. And yes, at first it feels awkward, unnatural, even forced. That's because you're retraining your brain. But remember, you trained in the old habit through repetition. You'll train in the new one the same way. So here's the challenge. Identify one habit you want to break, and don't just say, I'll stop. Write down what you'll do instead. Be specific. When the urge hits, what will you reach for? Where will you go? Who will you call? If you can answer that, you've already taken the habit out of the dark and put it under your control. Because the truth is, you don't eliminate habits, you replace them. And the replacements you choose will decide whether you keep spiraling backwards or start climbing forwards. Simplicity wins. Pick one rule you won't break. Most people fail at breaking habits because they make it too complicated. They create long lists of rules, they set up elaborate systems, and they pile on restrictions until the whole thing feels overwhelming. When you're juggling too many rules, you're guaranteed to drop them. Then you feel like you've blown it, and that leads you straight back to square one. That's why I say simplicity wins. One clear, simple, non-negotiable rule beats 10 vague goals every single time. Here's the truth: the human brain thrives on clarity, not confusion. The more decisions you have to make, the faster your willpower burns out. If you have to debate with yourself 100 times a day, should I check my phone? Should I eat this cookie? Should I skip the gym? You're going to cave eventually. But if you've set one rule you never break, the decision is already made before the temptation even shows up. That's power. That's freedom. Let's use an example. Say you're trying to cut back on junk food. You could try to manage it with 10 different rules. No chips, no soda, no candy except on only fast food once a week. No snacking after 9 p.m. Drink water before every meal. That's exhausting. You're basically running a full-time job in your head just to track all the rules. Instead, pick one simple, strong rule. Something like no soda, period. That's clear. There's no wiggle room, no debate, no gray area. The rule is simple enough that you don't have to think about it. You just live it. When you choose a single rule, it becomes a foundation you can build on. It's not about being perfect in every area all at once. It's about proving to yourself that you can keep one promise consistently. And when you do that, you start to build self-trust. That trust is what gives you the confidence to take on bigger challenges. The mistake people make is thinking they need to overhaul their whole life in one big dramatic move. That's not realistic. That's not sustainable. Change sticks when it's simple, consistent, and specific. Another example, maybe your bad habit is wasting hours on your phone at night. You could make a long list of digital wellness rules. No phone after 10 p.m., set a screen time limit, no social media during meals, no YouTube binges, charge your phone in another room. Or you could pick one clear rule: no phone in bed. That's it. If you never break that one rule, you've already solved half the problem. It cuts off the worst habit loop right at the root. Here's something else to consider. A rule has to be both simple and specific. I'm going to be healthier is not a rule. That's a wish. I will walk outside for 10 minutes every day, no matter what, is a rule. I'll stop wasting money is not a rule. I won't use my credit card for online shopping is a rule. The difference is that rules can be measured, kept, or broken. Vague wishes just float around in your head and give you the illusion that you're making progress when you're really not. Now, let's get real about why picking just one rule works better than a long list. Every time you follow through on that single rule, you get a win. You get proof that you can keep a promise to yourself. Those small wins stack up, they create momentum. Momentum creates identity. Before long, you're not someone who trays to change, you're someone who actually follows through. That shift in identity is worth more than a dozen half-kept goals. But here's the kicker. The rule you choose has to be one you are absolutely committed to. It can't be half-hearted. It can't be negotiable. If you choose a rule and then bend it when things get tough, you've trained yourself to believe your own word isn't worth much. That's why I say pick one rule you won't break, not one you hope break, not one you'll try not to break, one you flat out won't. Draw the line in the sand and then honor it like your reputation depends on it, because in a way it does. When you break promises to yourself, you chip away at your own self-respect. When you keep them, even small ones, you strengthen it. And when you strengthen self-respect, breaking bad habits becomes less about gritting your teeth and more about living up to who you believe you are. One rule is enough to start that process. One rule, kept consistently, can be the domino that knocks over every other obstacle. So ask yourself this: what's the one rule you can make right now that will hit your bad habit where it hurts? What's the single clear promise you can make and keep every day, no matter what? Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. Just pick one. Simplicity wins. And once you keep that rule long enough, you'll look back and realize you didn't just change your habit, you changed your identity. Accountability is the difference between wishing and changing. Everybody wishes they could break their bad habits. They wish they could lose weight, quit smoking, get off their phone, stop procrastinating. But wishing doesn't change a thing. Wishing is what you do when you want the outcome without paying the price. Change only happens when there's accountability, when someone or something outside of your head is keeping you honest. Without accountability, you'll talk yourself into excuses, and excuses are how bad habits survive. Here's the truth you may not want to hear. Left to your own devices, you will lie to yourself. You'll rationalize. You'll say, I'll start tomorrow. It's not that bad, or I deserve a break. And because there's no consequence for letting yourself off the hook, you let yourself off the hook again and again. That's how months turn into years and habits turn into chains. Accountability breaks that cycle. It takes your good intentions out of the private space in your head where excuses thrive and puts them into the light where they can actually be tested. Think about it like this. If you tell yourself, I'm going to the gym tomorrow, that's a wish. Nobody knows if you follow through. Nobody knows if you skip. There's no cost for quitting. But if you tell a friend, I'll meet you at the gym at 6 a.m., now there's weight to it. If you don't show up, you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting them down. That sting of accountability is what gets you out of bed when your willpower is whispering, stay under the covers. This accountability doesn't have to be a person, though that's the most powerful form. It can also be a system. Writing your progress down every day is accountability. Setting up automatic savings that you can't undo without effort is accountability. Scheduling your workouts on a shared calendar is accountability. The key is this: it has to exist outside of your head. If it's only in your mind, it's too easy to bend the rules. Now, let me tell you the mistake people make. They think accountability is weakness. They think asking someone to hold them responsible means they don't have enough willpower. That's ego talking. The strongest people in the world have coaches, mentors, or systems that keep them on track. Professional athletes have accountability built into every part of their training. CEOs have boards of directors. Even the most disciplined people know they can't rely on themselves alone because humans are masters at justifying shortcuts. Accountability isn't weakness, it's strategy. Here's another trap: picking the wrong accountability partner. If the person you choose is soft on you, if they let you slide, if they enable your excuses, that's not accountability, that's comfort. Real accountability has a little bite to it. It should feel uncomfortable to let that person down. That's what makes it effective. The best accountability partners are the ones who tell you the truth when you don't want to hear it. They don't let you off easy. They remind you of what you committed to and hold you to it. But there's also another side to accountability, and that's celebration. When you follow through, when you replace the habit, when you keep your one rule, an accountability partner can reinforce the win. They can say, I see you. You did what you said you'd do. That recognition matters because it builds momentum. You start to crave the feeling of following through. You start to see yourself differently, not as someone who wishes, but as someone who does. Let's put it in real terms. Imagine someone trying to quit drinking soda. On their own, they'll last a week or two, then slip back. But if they tell a coworker, every day I make it without soda, I'll put $1 in a jar. If I cave, you get the jar. Suddenly there's real accountability. There's a system. There's skin in the game, and there's someone watching. That person is far more likely to succeed, not because they magically have more willpower, but because accountability keeps them honest. So here's the straight talk bottom line. If you're serious about breaking a habit, stop keeping it a secret. Stop pretending you can handle it alone. Get accountability. Tell someone. Write it down. Build a system. Create stakes. Do something that makes it harder to backslide and easier to move forward. Because until you do, you're not changing, you're just wishing. And wishing doesn't get you free. Accountability does.